Review bombing. It sounds like such a hilarious act, doesn't it? Review bombing. When I hear that, it conjures up specters of the past, dating back to the beginning of time. The beginning of time, if you ask most smooth-brain whack jobs who spend their entire day on Twitter complaining about capitalism on their iPhones from a Starbucks whilst using free Wi-Fi. And they'll never understand just how ironic that is. But these are the kind of people who act like they're excited for Marvel's Eternals because of the, say it with me at home, kids, representación, diversity, and inclusion. And it shows the first gay kiss in an MCU movie with the introduction of Phastos and his human husband and their family. And I think it's great, to be perfectly honest. But the article in question says that Kumail Nanjiaini said the Eternals review bomb is a sign that they're upsetting the right people. He's right, and it's a great sign for the MCU. Now let's take a look at who wrote this article regarding the alleged review bombing of the MCU's forthcoming entry a mere days prior to its widespread release. Here's Fairfax Collington. This stunning and brave individual has a podcast called Unramblings and a YouTube channel with a whopping 67 subscribers that hasn't seen an upload in 4 months. And the agenda in this article is visible with one scan down its Twitter feed. Nanjiani's quote of upsetting the right people and it's a great sign for the MCU is a clear attack on the fans. And as I stated in my video on Nanjiani yesterday, he thinks deleting a tweet made it go away. But alas, my friend, the internet never forgets.
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
How does that usually play out when actors or directors attack the fans? Not too well. Just ask Elizabeth Banks of Charlie's Angels fame, Tim Miller of Terminator Dark Fate, or Paul Feig of Ghostbusters 2016. They all played that stupid game and won stupid prizes in the form of monumental financial failings in the projects they were trying to, quote, protect from mean people online. Or in the case of Banks, she was trying to garner any attention for her dumpster fire. Let's look at a few movies that were review bombed. The first one goes all the way back to the beginning of time, with the cinematic abortion that was Feig's Ghostbusters. Still the most downvoted trailer on YouTube with a ratio of 321,133 upvotes to 1,192,348 downvotes. The critics were far kinder than the people who were insulted by the cast and director Feig, and called misogynists and racist over their displeasure for the bastardization of their beloved franchise. And the blame for that goes directly to Feig and the ever-so-incompetent Amy Pascal. Now, I'm not excusing the vile and racist attacks against Leslie Jones that were made, because that is completely inexcusable. She's not funny, and she's a horrible actress. That provides plenty of ammunition to use. Taking the lowest of the low roads disqualifies anything you say once you've made the decision to deploy racial epithets as a weapon. Next we have Sir Ruin Johnson of the House of Roundhead's death blow to the Star Wars franchise. And that came in the form of one of the single most offensive films that I have ever laid eyes upon. Of course, I'm speaking of The Last Jedi. A film so divisive it fractured the Star Wars fan base beyond repair. To make things more humorous now, and this provides vindication for all of us who hated that movie and knew it was bad from the very beginning, a lot of people who ardently defended the sequel trilogy, and The Last Jedi in particular, can no longer mount a clear defense for the decisions that were made going into this movie, from plot to character arcs. It led to people giving it honest negative reviews that had nothing to do with Rey being a female and everything to do with the fact that the movie went against the established mythos and raised an inherently poorly written character. So review bombing is not a thing here when you have legitimate criticisms of a movie. That brings us to our previous MCU entry, the one and only Captain Cat Lady herself, Brie, I don't care what a 40-year-old white dude thinks, Larson, in her role as Cadaver Danvers.
Is that like a personal attack or something? Or...
You couldn't so much as say, I'm not interested in this movie, without being labeled as a bigot, misogynist, sexist.
2 hours later.
To the point that our beloved aggregator site Rotten Tomatoes moved the goalpost to accommodate a request that undoubtedly came from Disney to the president of Fandango, who had spent the previous 14 or 15 years working for Disney. So you do the math on that one. The movie wasn't woke, though. It was the marketing that led up turned MCU fans against the movie, to a certain extent. Also, the fact that Brie Larson is an insufferable narcissistic heifer didn't help either. It sits currently as the lowest rated MCU movie on Rotten Tomatoes as voted by the fans. And I'm shocked that it hasn't been removed altogether, to be perfectly honest, especially given the lengths that they went through to protect it initially. Let's be honest here, the only way a film that poorly crafted and acted as this one hits the $1 billion mark is the fact that it was shoehorned between Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. It had a female lead, thus it was protected and insulated from criticism, critique, or potential financial shortcomings. So for them to say everything was review bombing on this movie in the prelude to its release theatrically was absolutely false. You were allowed to say whether you wanted to see it or not. And Brie Larson did her best to antagonize the fan base in the lead up to this movie, which led to this backlash against the movie online by people saying they didn't want to see it, which is not review bombing. So that brings us all the way back to the subject of the video, the Eternals, and the alleged review bombing by racist, sexist, bigot, misogynistic, incel, neckbeard, Trump-supporting, alt-right, Russian bot trolls, and white supremacists. Whew! Did I get all the usual insults covered there? See, we've been called these things for simply offering up opinions on the current state of pop culture and entertainment for so long now, they've lost all their meaning. And it's a novel concept, isn't it? Words only have as much power as they're afforded by those who interpret them. And again, this doesn't excuse or make light of any actual bigoted or racist insults levied at a fictional movie with fictional characters who are played by real people. People need to remember to keep your critiques constructive if you want them to be taken seriously. And that's a problem that too many people don't spend the time to fix, because a small percentage casts a wide shadow over everything it touches. And that old adage goes both ways. My problem with the Eternals doesn't lie within the movie's diversity and inclusion, they lie within the antagonistic nature of people like Kumail Nanjiaini, who was and still is a virtual nobody. And my guess is that his star will fade quite abruptly because he simply isn't that talented. And so an inevitable return to his home in obscurity shouldn't be much of a surprise post-Marvel. As for Fairfax Collington and men like him who want to play pretend because they failed and think that switching genders will serve as a crutch to propel them to greater celebrity and prominence, because we're literally seeing that happen in society on both sides, and I shouldn't laugh, but I can't help myself at times. I hope that Fairfax can take solace in the fact that he chose a hilarious hill to die on for clout so minuscule it's basically irrelevant, just like him. Eternals will come and go, and without a Chinese release, it'll fall short of its financial goals set forth by the studio and the likes of the worst person at Disney next to Kathleen Kennedy, Kevin Feige. They knowingly chose Chloe Zhao to direct Eternals, fully understanding her beef with the Chinese government, especially given her comments about her childhood there and how she was exposed to nothing but lies. So that will cost them positive financial returns right there. But Disney will continue to pander to racist China. Look at the Force Awakens poster again. And similarly, Dune from Warner Brothers just eliminated Sharon Duncan Brewster, a black woman who portrayed a race and gender swap Dr. Liet Kynes, originally played by Max von Sydow in the David Lynch 1984 version. It just shows how hypocritical these companies are when it comes to their diversity and inclusion policies. But back to the money end of the Eternals. I mean, the MCU stans and normies alike will probably push this movie to the point where it almost breaks even. But with the $200 million budget in this climate, and the virtuous ones still being afraid to go to the theaters, this movie truly has a unique opportunity to be Marvel's first financial loser. I don't really believe it will, though. It'll make its money and then fade into relative obscurity and be forgotten like Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and Captain Marvel, Thor: The Dark World. And it'll be remembered not for its diversity and inclusion, but for the fact it had the most forgettable cast of characters in any Marvel movie that came before it. That's it, folks. I'm hopefully done talking about Kumail Nanjiani, Eternals, and review bombing until I finish sailing the high seas and watching it for myself. Because they don't get my money. Especially when you tell me that you don't want it because of who I am. But now it's your turn, ladies and gentlemen. Remember to speak with your wallets in cases like this, because that's the only way we'll be heard truly. Be sure to do me a solid and smash the like button. And if today's the day I've earned it, subscribe to the channel as we push towards the 1,000 mark. And don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Tune in here tomorrow night to catch Going Rogue episode 42 featuring myself, ToneDef, and our guest Black Angus Reviews and the Rookie Critic at 8:35 p.m. Eastern Wednesday night. I'm Etepo Queen of the Place to Be Reviews. I've been here with all of yous. If I don't see ya, have a great day, a pleasant tomorrow. And remember, it's always better to burn out than fade away.